Very good afternoon po sa inyo. Welcome to Mynimo Insights. Welcome po, Miss April. Welcome, Miss Daisy. Hello po, Ma'am Elaine. So we'll start in a few minutes na po. And yes, again, welcome po. Hello, Ma'am Hazel. Would you mind sharing po sa ating webinar chat for what province are you coming from? Hello po, Sir Eduardo. All right, I'll set up the Facebook Live na. Okay, are you ready na po, Asec Kiki? We'll go live na rin po. So we have our attendees na. All right, we are live. Good afternoon po. Magandang hapon sa ating Facebook viewers and as well as our participants here on Zoom. Welcome to Mynimo Insights, wherein we tackle and discuss the latest career and human resource management trends. So good afternoon po. Ako po si Shane and I will be with you this afternoon as we tackle a very insightful talk. It is the Department of Labor and Employment's initiatives in preserving employment. So for this afternoon po, we will be having first a talk and right after the Q&A portion. So for the Q&A, you may also send your questions here on our Zoom webinar chat. You can also send your questions in the comments on Facebook and also here on the Q&A window. So before we start, I would like to give a shout out first, if I may, to our participants coming from Boracay. Hello, Miss Lendy. Maayong hapon, Sir Averell from Cebu. Good afternoon po. So, let us proceed. We are very excited po with our speaker because our speaker is a concurrent director of the Bureau of Local Employment. She finished her Master of Development Planning degree at the University of Queensland, Australia. Master of Arts degree, major in Development Education at the University of Santo Tomas, and Bachelor of Mass Communications at Silliman University, Dumaguete City. She has the bureau responsible for promoting full and decent employment through policy and program development. Her initiatives include increasing employability of youth, developing career information guide, facilitating decent jobs, and promoting entrepreneurship. assessing 21st century skills of workforce, and developing new rules and regulations responsive to labor market changes such as human capital, devel- development, recruitment, and employment of foreign nationals. Our speaker is also a member of the Philippine delegation negotiating various free trade agreements specific to the movement of natural persons. Currently, she is engaged in measures to mitigate the employment impact of COVID-19, particularly on measures included in DOLE Employment Recovery Plan. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Assistant Secretary Dominique Rubia-Tutay. Good afternoon, Asec Nikki.
Hi, good afternoon, and sa lahat po ng mga taga-subaybay ninyo, I think from around the world and around the Philippines, good afternoon, maayong hapon sa mga Bisaya, and magandang tanghali po or magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
All right, we are excited for the talk po. So for our participants and viewers, you may send your questions in advance while our speaker is sharing her screen, and also you may send it on Facebook in the comment section below. So yes, we can now start.
Okay, so we can start na, and I'll ask my assistant Jill to flash on screen the presentation.
All right.
All right, so again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity that you have given us to share with you information about the initiatives of the Department of Labor and Employment in preserving employment during the pandemic brought about by COVID-19. So the presentation will be in three parts. We'll look at the employment landscape during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then we'll provide you some of the responses that the department have given during the pandemic, and also how do we move forward during this time of pandemic, particularly when we speak of workplace. Okay, so let's look at the landscape of the employment during the pandemic. This is based on the results of the April 2020 labor force survey. And if you noticed and you compare that during the January 2020 round of labor force survey, we've actually lost 8 million jobs. And our unemployment rate stands at 17.7%, and this is equivalent to about 7.3 million unemployed persons. We also looked at increased rate of underemployment at 18.9% if you compare that year on year during the April 2019 survey round of the labor force survey. And then let's look at which of the industries have actually been impacted. The 8 million net employment loss came from the following. For services sector, that's 5.3 million. For the industry where construction and manufacturing is, that's about 2.3 million. And then for agriculture, it was slightly affected with only about 316,000 net employment loss. And then biggest drop in employment can be found in wholesale and retail at about 2 million, construction at 1.4 million, transportation and storage at almost 1 million, manufacturing 846,000, and accommodation and food service at 682,000. So if you look at accommodation and food service, including transportation and logistics, and a portion of the wholesale and retail, you can relate that to the tourism-related industries, which was also greatly impacted. I saw in the audience, there's one from Boracay and also from Cebu, which is also a tourist destination. So you would see the impact of COVID-19 in your sector. Next slide, please. All right. We're very passionate when it comes to youth employment because this is one of the sectors that the department is helping. So the past years, we were already winning in terms of youth employment, where we were able to reduce youth unemployment rate. But during the pandemic, if you look at the figures, our employed youth fell at 4.4 million. And in terms of unemployment rate, it almost doubled, or it really doubled at 2 million, or 31.6%. And our youth not in education, employment, and training rate also increased to 25%. We were at 18.7% during the April 2019 labor force survey round. So you would really see the impact of COVID-19 in our country's employment situation. The next slide would tell you the number of establishments that are reporting to us on how they have been impacted by the pandemic. And note that these are establishments in the formal sector. So workers here would be those employed with employer-employee relations. It will not include workers in the formal sector and even the overseas Filipino workers. So there have been 107,000 affected establishments that reported to DOLE, and about 3 million affected workers. And these are establishments undergoing so many flexible work arrangements, and majority, in fact, 82% are under temporary closure. The top 3 affected industries would be the wholesale and retail, the other service activities, and then accommodation and food service activities. So if you relate that to the labor force survey of the PSA, it's almost the same sectors that have been affected most. Okay, next slide. All right, let's look at the establishment size. Majority are indeed from the micro and small enterprises and also large enterprises. In terms of the number of establishments, higher numbers can be found in the micro and small enterprises. But in terms of the number of workers, it's the large establishments whose workers have been greatly impacted. Next slide, please. All right. We're also monitoring now job displacement, and this would mean that the workers have totally lost their jobs because of retrenchment or either closure of establishments. So we have noted around almost 8,000 establishments who have reported retrenchment or have reported closure already. And the affected establishments is around 160,000. Okay, next slide, please. So some of the program responses for us to be able to assist workers in the formal sector, informal sector, and our overseas Filipino workers. We have the COVID Adjustment Measures Program, where we provided 5,000 financial assistance to our workers. And then we also have the emergency employment. This is in the form of disinfection and sanitation project under the TUPAD hashtag Barangay Ko, Bahay Ko, where workers in the informal sector will do some sanitation and disinfection activities in their own household and in their immediate vicinity for 10 days, and they will be paid the prevailing minimum wage in the region. For our OFWs, we provided a 10,000 financial assistance each under the DOLE ACAP program. So overall, we've almost spent about 7 million for the 3 programs that we implemented, and we were able to reach over 1 million affected workers. So if you compare that with those who have been affected, which is more than 3 million, then it's just about a third that we were able to reach. It's because also we have a very limited budget during the Bayanihan 1, and we realigned our own program funds for 2020. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I think this is the one that will interest you most because I think people from the audience are mostly businessmen and HR practitioners. So this one is the latest issuance coming from DOLE and the Department of Trade and Industry. This is the Supplemental Guidelines in the form of a joint memorandum circular 20-04-A. So it's about workplace prevention and control of COVID-19. So the supplemental guidelines reiterated the following measures to be implemented in workplaces. The frequent hand washing, disinfection of areas requiring temperature checks for workers and guests, and the designation of health protocol officers and creation of an occupational safety and health protocol committee to enforce the measures. Large companies were also required to provide shuttle services to their employees. All of the passengers will be required also to wear face masks and face shields inside the shuttle. It also banned employees from eating in workplace canteens and smoking in common areas. Instead, workers should only bring packed food or have their meals delivered. As for those who would like to smoke, they could do so in individual smoking area or booths in open spaces. Next slide. Under the supplemental guidelines, face shields should always be worn together when interacting with colleagues, clients, or visitors. Employers shall provide psychosocial support to their workforce, especially those showing mental and health concerns. So take note, HR practitioners out there, you should really check your people once in a while. Hindi lang po natin sila kukumustahin na sasabihin, how are you? But it's really engaging them. We also need to avoid cases where, probably because of the pressure inside the workplace, we say something bad to our workers. So maybe we should be more compassionate at this time. We should be more patient, and we should be more resilient about the situation. Frontline and economic priority workers, defined as those who work in high priority sectors, both public and private, and have high interaction with and exposure to the public, and live or work in special concern areas, shall be tested once every quarter. Additional guidelines on the management of asymptomatic and symptomatic employees in the workplace, such as contact tracing measures, isolation and referral, notification and reporting, disinfection and closure of buildings or workplaces are also indicated in the supplemental guidelines. Also, the use of absence and entitlement
Asek Nikki, are you there?
for employee contacts or those close contacts who have undergone a 14-day quarantine. All right, moving on. We have our DOLE issuances from the very start. I think in March and April, we already provide department orders and other issuances. So for instance, Department Order 213 This was issued to advise stakeholders on the conduct of processes and proceedings before DOLE offices in areas under community quarantine, such as lifting of the interruption of prescriptive periods for filing of documents, modes of filing petitions and complaints, applications for permits, conduct of inspection, and observance of health and safety protocols, among others. So we were lenient and have provided additional number of days when, say, for instance, you will renew your application for alien employment permit, or if you have some like cases that's being heard in the quasi-judicial offices of the department, then we have been lenient on that and have also extended the period for filing of cases, for instance, and also even in the mode that we conduct hearings, it's also it's being adjusted as well. There was also an issuance with regard to guidelines for the provision of accommodation services necessary to facilitate the repatriation of our land-based and sea-based Filipino workers during the enhanced community period. Okay, other advisories that we have issued in terms of assisting private sector workplaces in their preparedness and response to COVID-19. We also have advisory to assist and guide employers and employees in the implementation of various flexible work arrangements as alternative coping mechanism and remedial measures, and also advisory to supplement the steps to limit the spread of COVID-19 through flexible work arrangements, observance of strict social distancing measures, among others. Okay, there's also an advisory when it comes to assisting employers as they resume their business operation while preserving employment of workers under the different quarantine periods. And so the labor advisory is currently being updated because we put some grievance machinery already in the advisory, so that in case workers or even their employers would have some disagreements, then there will be we can provide a grievance machinery for you to settle the differences when it comes to benefits. Take note that in Labor Advisory number 17, the provisions of your collective bargaining agreements or even your employment contracts and also company policies may be adjusted because of the pandemic, but you have to ensure that both the employers and the workers agreed on the adjustments in your existing CBAs or in your current company policy or employment contract. And there's also a period within which those adjustments will be applied. It's only for 6 months, and then that is subject to review. There are cases, for instance, someone asked me if it's okay to reduce the wage of their workers at some level while there is an undergoing pandemic. So these are the type of adjustments that you can work with between the workers and the employers. Okay, next slide. All right, we're looking at hopefully we can move through this pandemic in the next 2 years. But having said that, we have to make more adjustments, not just in the workplace, but on how we do things. And we see technology taking a pivotal role in ensuring sustained business operations and continued employment in the new normal. So we put premium to occupational safety and health in the workplace, which is paramount also to the department's mandate. We have regularly issued labor advisories, as you have seen on screen earlier, for guidance of our employers and workers to ensure safe and humane working conditions even during the pandemic period. There are also various legislations being heard at the Congress promoting flexible remote work and strengthening infrastructure as requisites of the new normal. And also, the challenge that we need to face and accept would be the retooling, reskilling, and upgrading of our Filipino workforce as companies repurpose their products and services, and as the production processes require more demand for digital and soft skills. Currently, the bicameral conference for the Bayanihan to Recover as One is ongoing. It's now on its third day of discussion, and we hopefully, when it passed or it will be enacted into law, hopefully we can reach more companies and workers to be provided assistance under the Bayanihan 2. Okay. In support to employment mitigation measures, the DOLE will also intensify its assessment and monitoring functions of the national employment situation, such as establishments, adopting flexible work arrangements, work rotations, telecommuting, suspension or closure of business, resumption of business operations, modifications at workplace to comply with new health and safety rules, close counting of return to work of employees and those who are not able to reacquire employment, and adopting measures to assist establishments to provide employment as well. We will also continue to issue regular advisories and provide the necessary technical assistance to both employers and workers to help them transition to new normal. The department is currently part of the Interagency Task Force Technical Working Group for Anticipatory and Forward Planning's Task Group on Recovery, both for social and economic, which aims to formulate and monitor action plans that will facilitate the restarting of social and economic activities in a way that is safe amid this pandemic. So among the contributions of the department to the task group include employment facilitation services. Currently, we are working with Asian Development Bank and Plan International for online modules on life skills training under our Job Start program. And also provision of training on work ethics of a productive worker in the new normal. And this is in partnership with the National Wages and Productivity Commission. We're also continuing to provide updated and relevant labor market information, and we will be updating our Jobs Fit report for labor market information in the coming months. So we will be releasing LMI that would tell us key employment generating sectors, in demand and hard to fill occupations during and even after the pandemic. Okay, next. We will continue to implement also our emergency employment program under the TUPAD. And also, hopefully, as I've mentioned, when Bayanihan 2 gets enacted, we will still provide wage subsidy for our affected workers. Okay, next. There will also be some livelihood interventions for those who want to engage in, or those who don't want to engage in wage employment. So we will give them the opportunity to start their own businesses, and the assistance here was maximum of 30,000. So we increased already the per capita cost or per capita assistance to be provided for those who want to engage in entrepreneurship or livelihood. And there will be a maximum of 30,000 capital, which is grant for our prospective beneficiaries. And of course, we will continue to provide productivity toolbox program for our micro, small, and medium enterprises, and this will be carried on by our National Wages and Productivity Commission. I think I'll stop from there, and thank you very much for your attention.
All right. Thank you so much, Asek Nikki, for the very insightful talk. So, yes, we're currently receiving some questions from our participants here on Zoom. All right. So we have here our first question. We can now proceed with our Q&A, Asek Nikki.
Sure.
All right. So we have a question here. What DOLE forms do employers need to comply who have not ceased its operation during this pandemic?
Who have not
Cease its operations during this pandemic?
If they have not ceased operation, but for instance, they just underwent temporary closure or flexible work arrangement, they can still submit report online. We have our establishment report. You can just look at it at the DOLE website or the website of the Bureau of Working Conditions. And then it's already an online reporting. So you need not go to the offices of the Department of Labor and Employment.
All right. Thank you, Asek Nikki. So we have here a question naman from Antonio Caldelero. What is the technique used in preserving employment, not only during this pandemic?
Okay. If you want to preserve employment beyond the pandemic, there are saving devices. The flexible work arrangement, different types, for instance, job rotation, or you can have reduce the number of work days or reduce the number of hours of work. But you can apply that when a company is experiencing financial trouble. But if you want to preserve employment and you want to cost cut, you can be provided with the productivity tools of our National Wages and Productivity Commission for you to be able to minimize wastage in work processes, and at the same time improve the productive capacity of your people without adding too much capital within the workplace.
Okay. We have here naman po, Asek Nikki, it's a question from Rowan. It's a question from Cherry Lynn Jerusalem. Is it mandatory for the employer to give 1 month equivalent salary when employee is terminated due to COVID-19?
If you talk about separation pay and you're about to retrench or close operations, the computation there is 50% or half month for every year of service.
Mm-hmm. So another question naman po regarding the flexible work arrangement. So does the 6-month limit for flexible work arrangement like forced leave and reduced work hours still apply during the pandemic?
Yes, it will still apply. It will still apply during this pandemic, but note that it is subject to review after 6 months. Before the 6 months ends, you have to look into the situation, because there are cases when, say for instance, companies who are on a flexible work arrangement, but at some point they will temporarily close, and then when things get worse, then they will close shop. So you can get signals, but it's important that you talk it out with your workers. You really have to be honest with them so that they will be able to understand the situation that you are in.
So here's a follow-up question, Asek Nikki. So if employees, if 6-month limit is still in place, can employees apply for a voluntary leave or what we call flexible work arrangement for an additional 6 months so they don't get retrenched?
If the HR policy would allow that, then they may do so. It's important that any arrangement between the worker and the employee, you need to put it in writing. And if it's possible, you also provide a copy to the Department of Labor and Employment, such that if the arrangement will be questioned, then you have the proof that it's really an agreement between the two.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Asec Nikki. So, we have here naman a question for holidays. During the ECQ period, bayad po ba yung mga legal holidays and special non-working holidays kahit hindi pumasok si employee?
Ganito yon, we have been lax in the interpretation of payment for holidays. Yung iba kasi hindi kakayanin. So, ang ginagawa, sige, pwedeng wag muna or in good times na lang kapag nakabawi na tayo. We have to be very practical nowadays because it's not just the workers who have been impacted, it's also the business who have been highly impacted.
Yes, correct. So, I may now proceed to the next. Question. We have here. We are in a flexible working arrangement. Pasok po namin is MWF. Yung mga legal and special holiday, bayad po ba kahit hindi pumasok si employee? I think this was answered already. Yes. So, you have here po another question. So, lots of questions are coming in right now. So, here, eto po. Good afternoon. Ask ko lang if legal ba natin tanggalan kami ng allowance ng employer namin. Pero yung mga executive, lalo na yung mga Japanese staff namin, is same pa rin yung salary nila.
May hugot yan. Unang-una, alamin natin bakit tinanggalan sila ng allowance. Ano yung situation para tanggalan sila? It can be in the section 5 of the current labor advisory number 17. Yun po yung nire-refer ko na wage and wage-related benefits may be adjusted provided that it will be agreed upon by both parties. So if we say dati binibigyan sila ng allowance, tapos ngayon hindi, that can form part of your adjustments in wage and wage-related benefits. But again, as I've mentioned, it should be agreed upon by both parties.
Okay, so I think it was pretty much clear, no, yung answer ni Asec Nikki. So I will proceed now to the next question. It's from Andayan. How about po yung mga employees who does not agree with the new arrangement? I think this question is more about, if I'm not mistaken, what can the employer do if the employees will not agree with the new arrangement?
Ganito yan. For instance, in a company of say 100 workers, and then few would not agree to the arrangements, kailangan lang documented na may ganun nga silang disagreement with the new arrangements nila. Oo. And then mag-a-apply yung syempre yung majority. So ganun pa rin, i-apply mo pa rin siya doon sa mga hindi nag-agree doon sa arrangement na yon. Then they can just question it, and we can hear naman the complaints or the cases.
All right. So, we have here a question regarding probees naman po. Are probationary employees entitled to a separation pay when terminated by the employer because of COVID-19?
Yes. Ang separation benefits po regardless of the employment status.
All right. So, another question here is, our company is currently 100% working remotely. Most of our employees prefers to work at night due to slow internet connection during daytime and less distraction. In this case, are employers necessarily pay for a night differential?
Ang batas po natin, mag-a-apply pa rin po yung night differential. I would assume kung yan ay night work, BPO company ba ito? Kasi ang ginagawa po ng mga BPO companies, they spend to boost the connectivity of the workers who are under work from home arrangements.
So I think you can do a follow-up question naman po. So Asek Nikki can answer it. All right. So we have here a question from Landy. Asek, majority of our workers now are on a floating status and will expire on September 17, 2020. 2020, it's 6 months. However, the company cannot yet allow them to go back to work or even in rotational basis, especially we are greatly affected in the tourism industry. What is the best thing we can do?
Okay. Kasi pag 6 months na, tapos halimbawa, kaso ito tourism direct worker ba nila or employer nila yung yung nagtatanong. Pag ganyan po, pwede ka nang, it could either close shop ka na, and then yung pong separation benefits ay pwede mo pong on a staggered basis kasi nga wala ka namang kita, 'di ba? Or if they agree na ang pwedeng arrangement then is okay, another 6 months floating, but if there are opportunities that they can get outside the company, then pwede naman nilang i-free up na po yung yung kanilang worker.
Okay, perfect. So I hope it was clear, no, Ma'am Landy. So we have also a question from Dirt Monisen. I think this is a situation wherein most of our employers are facing nowadays. So he said, our client downsized our work. So I have several workers who don't have a job now. Instead of letting them go, I want to try and find other projects for them. But in the meantime, to ask them for forced leave. What is the proper procedure po?
Opo, yung pong forced leave is part of flexible work arrangements. So you can just report it to the Department of Labor and Employment. There's a facility for under flexible work arrangement using the online facility. You can just report. Ano po yun? Nakalagay doon anong period yung mag-undergo sila ng forced leave and then sino yung mga affected workers.
All right. So another question naman po. So we have a lot of questions coming in now, but we'll try to answer as many as possible. So we have here, employer has confirmed that temporary closure sila and staff was advised through email that forced leave sila for 6 months. My question is, how will we know if my employer has really applied for temporary closure?
You can email or you can call the concerned regional office kung saan po located yung company. If you want, you can give me also privately yung name ng company, then we'll tell you kung nasa list po sila because we are the repository of all the reports here in central office.
All right. Sige po, and if I may ask, Asek Nikki, can we also provide the email address we have used here on Zoom so that if ever they have further questions po, they can address it to that email address, or
Okay.
Sir Hill can provide it later po.
All
right. Sige. Thank you so much, Asek Nikki. We also have here a question from Maria Aviso. This is very relevant. Hi, is it mandatory for the company to provide the face shield? Our employee salary was not affected since the start of the pandemic until this time. Thank you.
Hindi affected ang kanyang company?
Yes po, the employee's salary are not affected.
It's okay. Magkaiba naman po kasi yung requirement for face shield kasi it's for health reasons. It's still mandatory that we wear face shields inside the office. But tingnan nyo ko muna yung line of work na gagawin nyo. Hindi naman yan cast in stone na the whole time that you are in the office, you wear face shields. Kagaya ngayon, mag-isa lang ako dito sa office ko. So I need not wear face mask or face shield. But pag merong pumasok at meron kang ka-interact, then that's mandatory that you wear all your protective devices. There are also instances, for instance, sa mga BPOs, syempre pag nagsasalita ka, hindi maiintindihan ng customer. Sa ano naman, sa inyong workplace naman, may divider kayo, right? And then it's not like 100% nandoon kayo. So may mga physical distancing pa rin yon. So hindi po natin siya literally susundin. Kumbaga, let's be at most practical kung kailan siya dapat suotin. But importante, meron po tayo nun.
Alright, I think it was very clear. So, eto naman pong question from Anton Alexis. What if the company will file bankruptcy and the reason is due to the pandemic? Are the employees entitled separation pay still?
I think for bankruptcy, yes. Pero maraming requirements. You really have to open your book and submit it to us.
Okay. So, yes,
Kasi titingnan yung mga assets niyan.
Okay. Yung financial status din po.
Yes.
So, we have here a question. Can HR apply for the certificate of unemployment of retrenched employees on their behalf so that they can claim their SSS unemployment benefit? Or are they really required to apply for it with DOLE individually?
It's individual po yung pag-a-apply. And ang mag-a-apply po nun yung yung worker mismo. Ang po pwede pong gawin ng HR is to give that parang proof na talagang natanggal po sa trabaho yung tao. Because apart from that proof, po pwede rin kasi yung establishment report ay sufficient na for the worker to submit to us.
Okay. So, I think a participant po wants to clarify difference between no work, no pay and retrenchment. So the question is, ask ko lang po if ever the probationary employees were put under no work, no pay since the start of COVID-19 and the employer wants to terminate the contract, not push through with the regularization due to COVID. Is this considered retrenchment po?
Okay. Yung probationary period kasi, pwede mo siyang i-extend kung walang work during the pandemic. And then, sa tingin mo naman ay, makakabawi pa kayo at some point. Pero kung hindi na and you really want to terminate, pwede mo naman pong i-terminate na. And then, you just provide yung prorated na separation benefits.
Okay. So, madami-dami na pong questions. So, I think we'll just choose for the most common questions po which are faced by the employer. Sige. So, we have here a question po. Can the employer waive the 13th month salary for the reason of no business due to COVID-19?
Sa ngayon po, pinapayagan siya. But you have to inform your workers about it. Pero parang magiging utang siya. Kung hindi siya kakayanin ng one time, pwede niyo po siyang ibigay in tranches. But you just really have to inform your worker.
Okay. So I hope that answers your question. We also have here a question regarding absence without leave. So if somebody goes on a wall, can he be terminated because return to work has been sent?
Yes. But you have to, ang caution lang dyan is, dapat daanin nyo po sa, tawag dito?
Hello?
Paraan or period within which niya yung sarili niya, mag-explain siya. Yun.
Okay. So, we also have here a question from Mia. Is shuttle service for employees really mandatory?
Okay, I asked the secretary about it yesterday because in the guidelines, it says enjoin. So sabi ko, Sec, mandatory ba yung enjoin? Di ba yung hindi? Sabi niya, hindi. Mandatory yun. Sabi, okay. But Ang ano doon, ang pwede nyo pong gawin while it's mandatory regardless of the quarantine period, kasi kahit GCQ, pwede nyo pa rin siyang bigyan. Ang gawin nyo po ay pwedeng, alam nyo yon, may bayad or pwedeng i-subsidize naman yung transportation fee. So, para din silang regular na nagbabayad sa public transport.
Okay, so Asec provided an alternate solution. No? So we also have here a question from Liza. May I ask that those employees who will be on 6 months floating, but they're afraid to report to work due to COVID-19, can they be included in the retrenchment when the company will retrench?
Oo. Yes, baka sila yung unang masama sa listahan kasi nga kung pina-return to work na sila, hindi pa sila nag-return to work dahil natatakot po talaga sila, then that could be one of a justifiable reason for them to be included in those who will be retrenched.
All right. Thank you for the clarification, Asec. So we have here a question from Mia. What to do with employee who refuse to work due to fear of getting infected? Can we terminate that employee?
I think that's related to the question earlier. Bigyan nyo lang po siya ng, halimbawa, inisyuhan nyo na ng return to work kasi hindi siya bumalik. So, bigyan nyo siya let her justify yung kanyang actions doon sa inyong order. So, pag hindi pa rin, pwede nyo na po siyang sabihin na determinate siya. Due process lang ang ibigay po natin.
Okay. So, we have here a question naman for project-based employees. It's a question from Bing. For project-based employees whose projects were made to stop due to an outbreak of the infection at site, what would be the nature of their project-based contract?
Merong nagka-COVID in the workplace.
Yes po.
Ang protocol po natin, pag may COVID incidents doon sa workplace, automatic, i-disinfect yung work area. It will be closed for 24 hours. And then those who have been exposed to the COVID positive patient, pwede po siyang mag-undergo ng COVID testing. And then, kung ang resulta po ay negative naman, then return to work na po sila.
Alright. Sige po. So, we will be answering last 4 questions from our Q&A window. So, we have here a question. What is the correct procedure po if the company will do the retrenchment? Aside from serving 30-day notice to affected employees, what are the other things to do, most especially during this pandemic?
They just have to report online about the retrenchment. And then there's may mga fields po doon, mandatory fields that the employer or the HR needs to fill up.
All right. So we have here another question. We have here, can we have an electronic signature of the employee for the extension of floating status or screenshot email or social media message with their confirmation?
Pwede po yun. Pwede.
All right. So this was clarified already. We have here naman po a question. This is a pretty long question. This has been sent earlier before we started. So additional question is, legal din po ba yung na-force yung employees na mag-stay in sa company even if naka-GCQ na yung city namin? Pinagbabawalan pa din nilang umuwi yung employees at pag umuwi, di na pinababalik. Nahihirapan na din po yung mga employees kasi may deduction sila na 100 per day for their meals. Di po sila binibigyan ng ibang choice, automatic deduction po yung even if di ka kumain that day. Except lang during your rest day, you can opt to buy from outside.
OMG. Hindi dapat yun. Ito yung sinasabi natin kanina that employers should really be more compassionate, and understanding with their workers. Po pwede kasing ang maging arrangement po is, okay, even during GCQ, kasi mahirap po talaga yung transport ngayon, even naka-GCQ kayo. So po pwede ang arrangement nyo is 15 days, nakastay ka sa office, and then for another 15 days, uwi ka. And then, i-rotate mo yung mga tao mo. Kasi nga, mas mahirap kung makakontract ka ng infection.
Okay, so we have here our last two questions. The second to the last is from Arnie. Is admin hearing through video conference acceptable during the time of COVID-19?
Yes.
Okay, so last but not the least, we have here, if a probationary employee is being terminated for not passing the standards required of his or her job, can he or she still be given separation fee? I think they're confused with the current situation then po and the condition.
Yeah. Siguro, ang importante po, kung hindi satisfactory yung tawag dito, yung performance, kailangan ipaalam agad doon sa worker. Kasi normally, 6 months on probation, during your third month, sasabihin mo na how he or she performs. And then, kung hindi nag-perform ng maayos, may warning ka na. And then, yun, same process. Pwede mo na siyang tanggalin because of hindi satisfactory yung kanyang naging performance sa kumpanya. So hindi po 'yun, oo nga, may kalituhan kung bibigyan ba siya ng separation benefits. I don't have an answer to that actually.
All right. So thanks for your honesty, Asec. So I think with the virtue of time, I think we only have 6 minutes left. So all attendees and even absentees will be receiving a copy of the presentation, so they can play back the questions they want answers. And also, since we are ending our webinar for this afternoon, we would like to have a short message from Asec to our employers.
Opo. To all employers out there, unang-una po, maraming salamat po sa pagtanggap po ninyo sa akin. And hopefully, kahit sa maiksing panahon po ay nalinawan ang mga questions in your mind. So if you have other questions, you can throw it to us. And we would be gladly respond to it. Pangalawa po, siguro isipin po natin that the government is really doing its best para po matulungan kayo. In the Bayanihan 2 po, sana po ay maipasa na para yung mga negosyante po natin ay tuluyan din pong makabangon at huwag tuluyang magsara. Because kung wala po kayo, wala rin naman po talagang mga manggagawa. Kayo po ay isa sa talagang haligi natin para makabangon po yung ating ekonomiya. And then thirdly po, ang government po, particularly po yung Department of Labor and Employment, sa panahon po ng pandemya, hindi ho tayo yung titingnan nyo kami bilang, halimbawa sa inspection program po namin, kundi we are partners, we will be assisting you on how you can respond to the different protocols that's being laid by the government. And hindi po magiging adversarial yung ating engagement with you, but instead pagtutulungan po tayo para pare-pareho po tayong makabangon. So siguro yun lang po. And I hope I can give Mynimo the link doon po sa doon sa establishment report, because hindi ko lang kabisado talaga yung link para ma-share nyo rin po sa mga nag-register sa inyo dito sa inyong session.
Alright, thank you so much, Asec Nikki. So rest assured po that we will include the establishment report link and as well as the email address where they can send the questions that were addressed earlier. Okay. So yes, again, thank you so much, Asec Nikki, for generously sharing your time and knowledge regarding DOLE's initiatives to our participants and viewers, most especially po during this pandemic and the given employment challenges faced po by different companies and industries. So to our viewers and participants, marami din pong salamat for attending Mynimo Insights. Sana po ay safe kayo and you're doing well. For more updates po for our upcoming webinars, you may check our social media accounts. We hope to see you in our next Mynimo Insights. Salamat po and have a good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon and thank you so much. Ingat po kayo lagi. Stay safe.